Super Mario RPG is a treasure trove of fun facts and information. Let's dive into another batch of facts. There's a red dragon enemy called Bahamut, which can be summoned by Chester and Magikoopa. Its name in the Japanese version is Doshi, which is meant to be a portmanteau of dragon and Yoshi. In fact, the English version is about the only version where its name isn't a combination of Yoshi and dragon. If that isn't enough to convince you that there's a relationship to Yoshi, consider this unused, recolored enemy that exists in the game's data. Do those sunglasses look familiar at all? Why they didn't include this unused enemy in the original game is anyone's guess. Maybe they didn't want the red one to feel lame in comparison. The Magikoopa enemy, whom you face as a boss in Bowser's Keep, is present in several unused enemy formations, which include other normal enemies in Bowser's Keep. This tells me that Magikoopas might have originally been normal enemies you would encounter, just like terracottas. You may recall from an earlier video of mine that pre-release concept art shows that Smithy was originally going to have a magic priest boss in his army, who would have magic users as underlings. It's possible that Magikoopas would have been part of these underlings. Somewhere along the way, they scrapped this priest boss and promoted Magikoopa to boss status, making him a unique character. This gives weight to the theory that this particular Magikoopa is supposed to be Kamek from Yoshi's Island. This is further evidenced by his psychopath message. In English, he says, "That's my child?" which is possibly referencing his role as nanny to Baby Bowser during the events of Yoshi's Island. While that may seem like a stretch, the Japanese psychopath message makes things a bit clearer. It says, "You're that baby from that one time," referencing Mario, who was Baby Mario during the events of Yoshi's Island. Magikoopa, Wizakoopa, this is Kamek Erasure and I won't stand for it. When will Nintendo recognize him as the unique character that he is? Close enough. The Pure Water item defeats ghosts in a wink. At least that's what its description says. If you're curious about this game from a programming perspective like I am, you may have wondered, how does the item know what is and isn't a ghost? Is there a property monsters have that indicates undead status? It turns out the answer is much more rudimentary than that. The programmers of the game had to give each specific enemy a set of battle commands that says, if the player uses pure water, leave the battle. Not the most elegant solution, but it gets the job done. While pure water instantly defeats normal undead enemies, there is one undead boss in the game, Zombone. If you use a pure water on it, it will take 130 damage. That's because Zombone is programmed to use a basic attack on itself. 130 is simply the difference between its attack and defense stats. Also, in case you didn't know, pure waters defeat Beloam's clones. In the 90s, Nintendo of America was really cautious about using any kind of religious references in its games. So if you're like me, you may have wondered, is the item really supposed to be called Pure Water? Because Holy Water might seem like a better fit. As it turns out, the literal translation is probably something closer to Pure Water, but the contextual translation would be something more like Holy Water. As you can see from this list of translations, the translators were split on that one. Nintendo of America, of course, opted for the non-religious translation. I guess America just isn't ready for religion in Mario games. The Smithy Gang has clearly defined hierarchies of leaders and minions. Each area boss has its own distinct group of underlings. But you may have noticed that there's one area boss that doesn't have any minions. Wait, that's not what I... Yeah, that one. Yuridovich does his dirty work himself, including impersonating multiple townspeople simultaneously. However, the game's enemy data includes an enemy called Drillbit, which were originally going to be his underlings. There is exactly one drill bit in the original game, and his job is to watch Smithy's blood pressure? Wait, Smithy has blood? Other than this brief appearance, the drill bit enemy goes unused, despite having fully fleshed out stats. There are unused drill bit formations located in between the battle formation data for sunken ship enemies and Land's End enemies, indicating that you were supposed to fight them around the same time as Yaridovich. Plus, the formation for Yaridovich himself includes unused drill bits. What's more, the machine-made version of Yaridovich you encounter in the weapon world splits into machine-made versions of drill bits if he hangs around long enough. Once you defeat the drill bits, they turn back into Yaridovich. The real drill bit enemy has battle commands to do this exact same thing. It's possible that the original Yaridovich fight would have worked more like the machine-made version. Somewhere along the way, he traded in his drill bits for an exact double. If that's not enough to convince you of this boss-worker relationship, the psychopath message for this unused drill bit foe is, "This is for Yaridovich." Although Yaridovich is made up of multiple fake toads along with a leader toad, so in a way, he's kind of his own minion. Best not to think too hard about that one. Remember my first facts video where I told you that you only earn experience for defeating the Blade, and not the Axem Rangers, because the Blade is the only enemy in this battle that disappears? Turns out a couple other bosses do something similar. Like Exor. The eyes, mouth, and pommel all have experience values, but the pommel is the only thing that dies, so it's the only thing you get experience from. Maybe that's why the developers let us use Geno Whirl on it. You deserve it, Experience Hog. Mad Adder and Earthlink do the same thing. Both Cloaker and Domino give you experience, as they are both defeated at different points in the fight, but the snakes give you nothing, because they never disappear. You can verify this issue yourself using Countdown. Countdown is worth a whopping 100 coins and 140 experience for defeating it. If you defeat the Dingalings first, and then beat Countdown, the clock face fades away like a normal boss death, and you get your prizes. However, if you beat Countdown first, the clock face will break and spin around for the rest of the battle. Defeating the Dingalings then ends the battle, but the clock face is still there. It never faded away. This means that Countdown was never technically defeated, and you miss out on Countdown's experience and your 100 coins. Bummer. Now, some of you thinkers out there might say, wait, what about Krocko? He doesn't fade away when his HP hits 0, but you still get experience. That's because he does get removed from battle, but not until after you've gotten your stuff back and he's made his dramatic exit off the screen. The same thing happens to Valentina and Dodo. Speaking of the Axem Rangers, the last facts video didn't include the Axem Rangers, and for that, I have failed you. To make up for it, here's a few fun tidbits about them. Their formation in the game's data is different from the formation you see in the final product. Notably, yellow and green have switched places, as have red and pink, making pink the foremost member of the team. However, the event script that calls for the Rangers to introduce themselves switches their positions around to the ones you see in the game before you'd ever notice a difference. Why they're positioned differently in the first place is a mystery to me. What's more, this rearrangement not only changes their physical position on the battlefield, but also their position within the game's data. Pink becomes the first one listed, and that list continues from left to right. This is only relevant for one thing. If you defeat multiple Axem Rangers with one attack, the order in which they'll give their defeated speeches is dependent on this rearrangement. If you defeat all 5 at the same time, they'll each take turns making their speech, moving from left to right, with green being defeated last. That's it for this video. If you learned something new or liked what you saw, please consider subscribing. If you have any facts about this game you'd like me to take a deeper dive into, let me know in the comments. Until then, see you next time.